And welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand. Available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Thursday, July 21st, 2022. It's 8 p.m. We are live and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight with a special business takeover event.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Well, good evening. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Lexi Goza. And this evening, we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but for our LGBTQ+ community.
I'm so glad to be here tonight, talking business and politics. This weekend, the LGBTQ+ Democrats will be welcoming candidates for office at their summer conference in Fort Lauderdale. Al Ferguson will be there for Happening Out to ask the tough questions. I'll be there for SFGN asking, which is their favorite flavor at Wheaton Creamery? Seriously, though, this is an important event to meet our political allies and get out the queer vote. And also keep an eye out. As we were starting the show, I got an email from browardvotes.gov that my vote by mail ballot is in the mail. Vote. It's for the primary. There'll be another one coming down. Keep an eye out for these things. They can only make us better. Now, we are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Let's kick it off with welcoming anchor Tarek Turjman. He is the host of Tonight with Tarek for Villain Theater, the only place for alternative comedy in Miami, and a member of the House of Yas, the Villain Theater's queer performance art collective and Florida's only all LGBTQIA+ improv comedy show. He is a queer Guatemalan-born Palestinian comedian living in Miami. That's quite a mouthful. Good evening, Tarek.
I usually am a mouthful. But anyways, by the way, at Villain Theater tonight, we have an incredible show. It's called Fight for Choice. It's being headlined and produced by Brittany Brave, very well-known South Florida comedian, and it's to raise funds for access to reproductive care here in South Florida. So please come to Villain Theater tonight. And with that being said, let's please welcome our anchor, Jeff Oliverio. Jeff is founder and treasurer of the Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council, a unique community civic organization that focuses on life, government, and business in the greater Hollywood area. The council will be hosting the second annual My Hollywood Pride on January 22nd, 2023. He is also the chair for the 2022 National LGBTQ+ Force Gala, Red, White, and You, being held October 22nd, 2022 at the Miami Beach Convention Center. The gala is the premier celebration for South Florida's LGBTQ+ community, and along with its sister event, Winter Party Festival, has given back more than $3.3 million to local LGBTQ+ community organizations, which is like a Starbucks in a one-bedroom in Miami. But anyways, this year's event will also fund the Queer the Vote campaign to engage and mobilize LGBTQ+ voters. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I wonder who wrote that. And I want to also, again, continue to promote Get Out to Vote, register to vote, and get your ballots in the mail, and echo that along with our Queer the Vote campaign that the Task Force Gala is supporting. Now, let's welcome anchor Nic London. Nic London is a music artist known for his popular song, Can't Take Me. He's the MC on Friday nights at the Escape Lounge nightclub, a legend in ballroom, and a cast member from the YouTube series The Come Up Miami. Welcome, Nic.
Thank you. And let's welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including SFGN as community editor, covering politics, arts, and philanthropic organizations. Much of his career was spent as a celebrity journalist, covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood. Ooh, sounds exciting. John's interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music, and once spent an evening watching a movie with Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. Good God save the Queen, and welcome, John.
Thank you so much. And it's important to note that Al Ferguson once spent an evening at the theater with Queen Elizabeth I.
Oh.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. Love you, Al. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines for Thursday, July 21st.
So to kick us off, let's queer up business. Here are the special challenges of LGBTQ plus businesses and queer owners. In many states, including our own, Florida, companies have the right to fire employees for being LGBTQ plus. While working for yourself, like I do as a State Farm agent in downtown, or an LGBTQ plus friendly company, like I do also for State Farm, can help take away that fear for job security, there are other issues that might be faced, from the public and partner businesses not accepting you, to customers who will avoid your business. What special challenges have the individuals at this table faced or seen others face? And what can be done?
Well, I have to say, I think this is a huge issue because you work for a big company. I work for a large regional bank as well. And we get those protections because we work for large institutions. But I believe it's something along 2/3 of Americans work for small businesses.
Right.
And they're not afforded those protections that large businesses provide. So I think it's one of the reasons why we continue to echo the passage of the Equality Act in Congress. Because that protects everyone in their job, whether you work for a small business or a local restaurant or anything else, and any other makeup of different types of businesses.
Right.
I think that I've lived around the country as being a journalist and working in various television stations. This is the first place I've ever lived that had specifically gay businesses outside of a gay bar.
Right.
Places like To the Moon.
Right.
Places like the old Gay Mart, which the name says it all. So I think part of the challenge is just trying to fit into your community. And here, it's about ingratiating yourself into the queer community because, I've seen a lot of people come, open up shop, say, okay, hello, homosexuals, I'm here, please buy things from me. And then they're like, no, hard pass. So I think part of it is not just being gay, but also being part of your community as well.
And authenticity matters, right?
Yeah, which is something we've dealt with at Villain Theater. We are in a training center and the only place for alternative comedy in Florida. And what does that mean? That means that we're not just hiring the most popular comedians like the Improv and it's all, we try to bring artists that other places in Florida do not bring. And that includes a lot of queer artists. But we're not solely queer, it's owned by a straight man, but we've had to target the queer community and women because they're the ones who don't have usually a place to go to train for comedy or a place where they feel comfortable. So it's like, how gay can we be without scaring non-gay people, which is an issue. Miami, as liberal as it is, we're in the Little Haiti area, is a very conservative place as well. And how do we create the space for queers and women to actually say that we are a queer or feminist theater, So that's an issue we always deal with, kind of like balancing the gay, which sounds kind of horrible, but as a business person, you need to recognize it. At the end of the day, the majority of the people who sign up are straight cis men. And without them, we couldn't keep our doors open. So,
Yeah, so I deal with this, I feel like, and have dealt with this. After opening my agency in 2019, I made the decision to join the Gay Chamber in Miami Beach, and they're fantastic and provide a lot of resources to the LGBTQ business owners. And I also made the decision to become LGBTQ certified business with the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And I don't regret that decision. I wonder sometimes if it steers people away, right? And just this past weekend, my agency is sponsoring the gay prom that's happening on July 30th at the Arts Center. Super excited for that.
Yeah.
And so I decided to stage a big gay promposal for my girlfriend who she's never been proposed to go to the prom. Not marriage proposal, y'all. We're lesbians, but we're not there yet, right? So, so I was working with this lesbian-owned business in Melbourne, Florida. That happened to be the place where she took me on our first date, so pretty special. And they hesitated on having me come in and decorate with rainbows and everything because they're open for business, and a lot of their patrons are straight people, and they're not expecting to come in and see. So we made arrangements, and I said, you know what, I get it. Like, I own a business as well, and you can't have somebody come in and disrupt your business, right? But on the flip side of that, they still supported us and what we wanted to do in a way that was authentic for us. So I think there is a balance, and you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff. All right.
Next, let's queer up drag culture. New report on RuPaul's shocking net worth and how much she will make in 2022. New reporting from TV Guide, Stylecaster, and Celebrity Net Worth has raised eyebrows, beautifully sculpted eyebrows, on the financial and business strength of one of the LGBTQ+ community's iconic entertainers. What started with meager beginnings in San Diego and then moving to Atlanta at 15 years old is a story that has propelled her into superstar status. Today, we learned that her early music career, including her iconic song, Supermodel You Better Work, is not what has made her wealthy. Work hard, play hard could be RuPaul's mantra. She is not only the most successful drag queen in history, we are learning she is also a business and entertainment titan. RuPaul's net worth is why she'll always be one of the world's most successful drag queens. Before we dive into how much RuPaul is worth, let's look back on her career and ascent into the drag icon she is today. TV Guide reported that after the famous 2009 first season that was made fun of because of the low quality with, quote, "Why are you so bright, Miss RuPaul," end quote, the first season on Logo was still the highest rated show in the network's history. By 2013's season 5, TV Guide reporting she was making $50,000 an episode. Today, that salary, along with executive producer credits, has nearly tripled that amount. And with additions of All Stars, Drag U, Secret Celebrity Drag Race, and 16 versions of the show under the umbrella, with 6 more international versions in development, RuPaul as a brand is now a global institution. Combined with businesses, endorsements, and developments, including the new 2022 cocktail mocktail brand, House of Love, with World of Wonder and Svedka Vodka founder Marina Han, RuPaul's annual payroll is estimated at more than $8 million a year. Combine that with Celebrity Net Worth's estimate of RuPaul's net worth at more than $60 million. Industry insiders make the joke that the estimates are low because RuPaul comes from an industry that hides the money in the mattress. However, from a business perspective, the prospects of Ru Incorporated, given the gigantic success of current All-Star Season 7 and his jaw-dropping $200,000 price, seems to indicate that Mama Ru at 62 is just getting started.
Mama Ru is definitely in her bag. That's the best way to describe it. And I like that she is also giving back to the community. I feel like she's putting others on with her platform. So go ahead, Mama Ru.
Yeah, good point. Good.
I think I'm very excited for her success. But it took a lot of time and hard work. And I think she's really paved the way because now we see drag queens just come off her show, and make all this money. But, it's really incredible all the work she did for the community. I like that she's kind of everywhere and she's doing everything because, this is our culture, her art form. It's mostly queer art form. It comes from queer culture. And we're banking on it. She's banking on it. We were so used to being appropriated and having other people make the money on our culture. So I think that this is great. Pay the queers. It's expensive being gay. We need money. We need fucking money.
Yes.
Well, you also see, again, the attacks on, bringing children to drag shows that are happening out there. And what we're seeing is, I think it was a couple of weeks ago that RuPaul and some of the queens were one of the teams on Family Feud. Right. And I can't think of a more family-friendly 8 p.m. television show that had, that this is how mainstream that drag culture is that it's one of the teams on Celebrity celebrity family feud.
Right.
You know, it was
Yeah.
it could be the Kardashians versus the RuPaul and the Queens.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at what these politicians are doing, where families are at home at 8 p.m. watching TV and saying, what's the big deal about drag queens? They're on Family Feud. It just makes that, you see that progress is happening. And this is the biggest representation of RuPaul, whether the money is just kind of the benefit of all of this, but the representation is the most important.
Oh, I think Mama Ru would say that the money is not just the benefit.
Well,
The money is the thing.
Yeah,
And you got to
of
remember,
course.
these numbers that we're quoting, some of them are like $50,000 or $80,000 from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was 10 years and a whole lot of Emmys ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it, it's the franchising fee.
Yeah.
That's where she makes her bank. That's where, Drag Race Ecuador, Drag Race Guatemala, all those are gonna, those are money in the bank. And then whenever VH1 reruns an episode, she's getting a couple bucks out of that too.
Yeah.
So, and most recently, and we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago, she started to use her platform for social change too. She acknowledged all the hate that's going on. She's been pretty notorious for just sticking to the show, sticking to becoming lovable and letting us sit up here and remind people of how terrible Republicans are.
Right.
But she has come out and she's starting to use her voice. And I'm really excited to see where she is maybe after the Emmys in September and going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. The money is important. And I really enjoyed reading the article where they quoted her as saying, she really attributed her business sense and her work ethic to her parents. And I thought was really great. I mean, that she received that example and she's continued to build on that to create this incredible empire. Go Mama Ru. We love you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's now do something even more fun. Now we queer up politics.
Yay.
What? Contain yourselves.
Yes.
What 47 GOP said or didn't say after voting yes on gay marriage and the rare split in Florida. On Tuesday, the Respect for Marriage Act passed through the U.S. House with a bipartisan 267 to 157 vote. While the bill does not guarantee same-sex marriage in states, it does require the government to recognize marriages that are performed legally in other states. Of the 47 Republicans who voted on the bill, very few have made statements. Surprisingly, that includes high-profile Representatives Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Some, like Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, made statements in support of the bill on the basis of the Republican ideal of small government and personal freedoms. Others, like Ashley Hinson of Iowa, used that vote to encourage Democrats to help pass Republican bills. From a local standpoint, of the 16 Republican members of the House from here in Florida, only 6 voted yes. Kat Kamek, Michael Waltz, Mario Diaz-Balart, Carlos Jimenez, Maria Elvira Salazar, and Brian Mast. While none of them have commented on the vote, QAnon theorist and embattled suspected human trafficker, Matt Gaetz, did tweet, quote, "Today I voted no on H.R. 8404, the erroneously named Respect for Marriage Act. In a fit of hysteria triggered by one sentence in a concurring opinion by Justice Thomas, Democrats have moved to introduce a bill codifying Obergefell and Hodges. This holding is not in jeopardy. Gay marriage does not offend me nearly as much as offending federalism does through this legislation," end quote. Perhaps the most fair response to the vote came from Republican Peter Meijer of Michigan.
Hey everybody, this is Peter Meijer. We just got off the House floor of voting on the Respect for Marriage Act. Now, while I don't believe there's any threat to either Loving v. Virginia, which made unconstitutional any bans on interracial marriages, or Obergefell v. Hodges, which protected same-sex marriages, I don't think there's any chance of those going away or any political appetite to question them. What happened with the Dobbs concurrence by Justice Thomas was this question of the constitutional basis for those Supreme Court decisions. And what this court has said, they've said, Congress, do your job. Don't rely on the courts to do the legislating. Take up that legislation yourself. And that's frankly what this bill was. I kind of expected this to be filled with poison pills. The bill's only about 3.5 pages long, and it's pretty straightforward. It says, with regards to a marriage between two individuals, regardless of sex, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of race, regardless of national origin, if it is legally performed in one state, it has to be recognized for the purposes of state-based actions such as taxation in another state. That's it. There's no compulsion. There's no threats to religious freedom. There is just the simple question of, in the unlikely event that Loving or Obergefell goes away, making sure that there isn't absolute chaos. So I voted in favor of this thing tonight. I think it was the right choice from a limited government standpoint, from a liberty standpoint, and frankly, just from avoiding any circumstance where that type of chaos could come down the line.
So I find this encouraging that it passed, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's also, if you guys remember when marriage equality passed, what was the final push was all these big companies, Apple, McDonald's, and not because they cared about the gays, because they were losing hundreds of millions of dollars in insurance and tax because their gay employees couldn't get married. I think it's the same thing. What if Apple transfers your job from one state to another and you're married and they cover your health insurance? And then there's a thing with taxes, isn't there? Because that state might have a state income tax. So it's kind of like a business mess.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not even about human rights. Just, it is, but just talking from business point of view, it was going to be a mess.
Yeah.
It was going to be a mess.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and we talked about this story the night that the bill was being voted on. And I did want to bring up the business aspect of it because, we were talking about why is this not such, breaking news as big as it was when marriage equality passed in the Supreme, or was made in the Supreme Court. And you didn't hear companies coming out saying what you're saying, which is, again, if you work for a large, multinational corporation and they move you around the country and you say, oh, I was married in California, but I'm in Iowa now and no longer am I married.
Right.
You can't have a system like that. You can't have a system like that for Social Security benefits, for health care benefits. There's a whole slew of things that would impact LGBTQ or other marriages if they're not recognized across all 50 states. And it should have been the law of the land a long, long, long time ago.
And I think that one of the reasons people aren't really paying a lot of attention to this vote is because it's all about the Senate. And you need what is effectively 20% of Republican senators to vote to break a filibuster. And that's exactly the percentage they got in the House. They got 47 votes, which is exactly 20% of the Republican caucus in the House. When we talked about only 6 members of the 16 Republicans from Florida, that's still more than 20%.
Agreed.
That's like about a third. So really, Florida overperformed, even though 6 out of 16 doesn't sound like a lot. It's still better than the House did. And as far as Liz Cheney, she's probably going to lose her primary in a couple weeks. So she's like, sure, because she has a gay sister.
Yeah.
Her dad, whatever you think of his terribleness as vice president, he has supported his daughter and our community for at least 20 years now.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you said that, John, because when I heard 6 Republicans from Florida said yes, I was like, wait, what? Back it up. So I felt too, like you did, that was a good percentage from our state. So I'm encouraged. I know a lot of us were very scared after Roe, thinking that they were coming for us next. So I'm encouraged to see this, and it makes me feel better, at least for now.
Yeah. And
See what happens
CNN polled all 50 Republican senators, and they've got 4 positive yeses and 8 positive no's, but like 22 people who are sort of like, well, I don't know if we need it, Obergefell isn't going away, and I'll see when I get the bill, which is a lot more than we would have gotten before. It used to be, it would have been 46 no's.
Yeah.
Right.
Just out of the gate.
Exactly.
So maybe once, after we get past the election, we get into the lame duck, maybe they'll be able to clear the Senate. We'll see.
Good point. Good
Seems
point.
like we are definitely making progress.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Florida restaurant Marquee asks, what do you call a lesbian dinosaur? Possibly aimed at Mayor and Police Chief Rick Reed, owner of Sweetie's Diner in Fort Pierce, whom has been fighting with the Chief of Police and Mayor for years. Reed claims in a lawsuit against the city that starting in 2016, the Chief of Police, Diane Hobley-Burner, instructed her officers to begin targeting him with traffic violations and warnings. The conflict began when the former mayoral candidate turned restaurant owner sided with the family of a 21-year-old unarmed Black motorist who was shot and killed by a traffic cop. When Reed asked the Justice Department to step into the investigation, the fight with Hobley-Burner approached him, telling him he should stop. After being banned from City Hall meetings, Reed began targeting the chief and the mayor with jokes on his restaurant's signs. The jokes change daily and don't always target the two women, but frequently they do. Recently, he came under fire for the line, quote, "What do you call a lesbian dinosaur? A lick a lot of puss," end quote. He claims that remark was not targeting the chief, stating that it would be, quote, offensive to lesbian dinosaurs everywhere, end quote. It's funny. Past lines that were obviously targeting the officials include, quote, "If the mayor and police chief lived together, they'd be roommates," end quote. He has also proven he is not above fat shaming the chief, once posting, now playing at Fort Pierce Police Department, The Blob, starring Hobbly Wobbly.
Yeah, it's a vendetta now, right?
Yeah. Free speech is a tricky thing.
It is a tricky
It is.
And as a business owner, people can vote with their dollars. So that's where free speech comes into play sometimes, where you can. Is he directly harming anyone with his comments? I don't think so. He might harm his own business, or he may actually get more business from it.
Yeah.
Well, it is Fort Pierce, so let's be real. I came from near that area, and it's pretty conservative. That's putting it nicely.
Florida's conservative.
Yeah.
If he did it in downtown Miami,
Right, different
he'd
story.
get the same response.
Yes,
But in Spanish.
Yeah.
We're racist in Spanish. But it's conservative. It's
Yes.
conservative. So it's the whole state. I do admire his valor, and
Right.
his I'm a comedian, so I value that he's trying to, he's using comedy. Although, he can be offensive, especially the fat shaming and, jokes about women and all that stuff. But lick a lot of puss is kind of funny.
It is very
funny.
And there's many layers to this story, right?
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time disliking him when I read what he said about
Exactly.
how it would be offensive to lesbian dinosaurs.
And-
I mean, I feel like that's like the best shade ever. And he's not a gay guy. So I was like, all right, go.
Yeah.
But see, I don't like anything about this person. I mean, yes, he stood up for a young Black American that had been shot by police, and that's horrible that it happened. Good that he stood up for it.
Sure.
But that said, this is the same joke that my bigoted high school football coach told. Literally the same joke.
Yeah.
30-some years ago.
Right.
It wasn't funny then, and it implies, and I disagree with what you said, that it doesn't hurt anybody, because it does. It hurts young girls who might see it, and it implies gay is lesser, in my view. So that's, I think, anybody who drives by and their young daughter sees it, I think they're gonna feel lesser because of it. It encourages, I think, attacks on our community. And I would bet if we got a search warrant to go into his house, we would find a pile of well-worn red hats.
I think that
I think it's hard to label somebody that, but by a comment that's really, I think it's an innocuous joke in many cases. Yes, is it in poor taste? It may be in poor taste.
I think, I think because of the audience, it's a bit innocuous. I think people will use it as an opportunity to repeat the same thing in school, or it normalizes it in a way. Right. So I think it is a bit dangerous here in Florida. Unfortunately, we're a bit too ignorant to maybe see the joke or sarcasm in it.
I think because
the majority.
Well, what I mean is, for example, Trump's rhetoric. I dislike saying his name, but his rhetoric got him to a place where people were expressing more of their humor. And I didn't like his rhetoric. I felt that it was very dangerous. But from this guy, I don't see him as being homophobic. I think that he's trying to get the message out in a healthy way.
Right.
And what it seems like, especially when I interact with more of our demographic today, is that the humor and things is just being taken away. Right. And that we're so serious that the humor is just a distraction.
Right.
And we lose the focus of what's important. So I tend not to now let those type of things bother me, because I don't want to get distracted and focus so much on that the real issue is missed.
Right, and the article focused a lot on that, right? So his comments really inflaming, people who are progressives and want to make sure that nobody's discriminated against. Yeah. And his point was, I defended a young Black man who was a victim of police brutality and violence and died as a result. And I called in the Justice Department to help out with that and get some justice for this young man. And they have effectively targeted me.
Right.
And, so that, what is that, right? Like that's behavior that's targeting him in the same way that young black man was targeted, right? And so, the fact that he's utilizing his platform to maybe shine some light on the police department there and the mayor, I don't know that it's the wrong thing to do. I always felt in the past, like as a business owner, I tried to kind of stay away from political stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think big companies did for a long time as well.
Yeah.
But I think we're past that. I think we're at a point where you can no longer not use your platform. We were talking about it with RuPaul earlier, right?
Yeah.
You can't stand aside and not have a voice. If you're silent, then you're agreeing.
And I want to clarify my point about him, about whether he's a Democrat or Republican. I think we have to get away from putting a label on him either way, even with his rhetoric. Because again, a lot of people fall in a gray area. That again, fighting against police brutality is something that is the most progressive of fights that are out there. And so the people who are wearing red hats are not out in the streets for BLM and making a statement. They're out there supporting Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he may fall in a gray area where he sees police brutality in some way, and he still may vote Republican because he may be for small government. So are we going to throw him away? No, I don't think so. That's why I said I think it could be more nuanced about where his views lie, and he seems very nuanced in his approach.
Yes.
I mean, maybe he's more of an an independent thinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversation about this beforehand, and there are lots of layers to the story.
Yeah,
There really
right.
are.
And
Yeah.
again, we have to I think get away from like what you're saying, Jeff, the black or the white, or categorizing people, and get back to being able to have conversations.
Yeah.
Right, and point out when something isn't right.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
All right, well, we move on and we queer up business. I love this story. Queer business drag queen, as Trixie Mattel says she wants more Trixie Motels. Trixie Motel, the Discovery Plus show featuring RuPaul's Drag Race super queen, Trixie Mattel, has come to an end. At least the show has. Trixie apparently loved the experience of remodeling a resort so much that she's looking to continue with even more Trixie Motels. In an interview with British Vogue, she teased it when asked about what was next, saying, quote, "I'm just going to do some DJ gigs near home. Maybe put out some singles. Although, I do want to open another motel. That'd be fun." It would be so fun because this motel is just fabulous. It is fierce. It's in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, though, this was the plot of the last season of Schitt's Creek.
Right. Yes.
I think a great location would be South Beach or Fort
Right.
Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Well, Manor's looking for a
South
hotel.
Yeah, Wilton Manor.
They've been looking for years. Put one of these in there. I'd stay, and I'd live 4 blocks from it, and I'd stay
Right.
there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
talk about a transition for a network, for Discovery to be taking a show with a drag queen. I mean, Discovery is the home of Food Network,
Right.
HGTV was the home of Paula Dean.
Right.
Yes.
It was,
Chip and
it was
Joanna
It was
Gaines.
Chip and Joanna. Yeah.
Yeah.
Conservative Christian was
Yes.
their viewer. And the network is changing. I don't know if anyone has watched this show. It's absolutely fabulous.
It's fabulous. She's
It's
fabulous.
such a great storyline. From a home, a decorating show, but with a twist, with a really great twist. It's produced really well, and bravo to Discovery for bringing the show to middle America homes to make drag queens and drag culture mainstream.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love
But you know what? If you're mentioning some people like Paula Dean, and I don't like Paula Dean, but
Butter.
she has something in common with drag queens.
Butter.
The camp. It's very American.
Yeah.
Yes.
Americans like immediate character.
That's
Yes,
and
true.
campy. We love cartoons. There's so
Yes.
many adult cartoons. We're the place of The Simpsons, Family Guy, you name it. So I think drag queens are going to be everywhere because Americans love that kind of character.
We do.
And that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
Because
me
that
very
means
happy.
1 million moms, all 5 of them are going to cry.
Yeah.
All 5 of them.
This is true.
Yeah, no, it's true. But because they're on British Vogue, they're
Yes.
everything's mainstream. They're not on some gay magazine.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Trixie Mattel just sold out Radio City Music Hall.
Really?
And she's the first drag queen to ever do that.
Yeah.
And the first gay performer, I believe. So this is
Incredible.
crazy.
This is major.
Yeah.
It's a big
And I believe they are part Native American as well. Grew up really poor in a
awesome.
trailer park. Like their stories are
Great.
very inspiring.
Yeah.
And just reverting back to RuPaul and the doors she's opened, because Trixie's been able to do it a lot quicker because of the doors RuPaul has opened. But I think it's amazing. I get goosebumps when I see my gays making money.
Yeah.
So,
And didn't someone say when we were talking before the show that like this is like sold out? The hotel, the existing one in Palm Springs is sold out for like months ahead of time with not cheap rates.
correct.
Yeah.
500.
I mean, $700 a night in Palm Springs is probably what it is nowadays, you know, like with gas prices. I don't know that everything's just so expensive nowadays.
Yeah,
Like $500? Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
it could be a Motel 6 for $7
Yeah,
a night in Palm
Right.
Springs.
Especially in Palm Springs.
But good for Trixie.
Yes,
it's in
absolutely.
her bag too.
She is.
She is.
So finally, let's queer up business. Gay business and LGBTQ plus shopping could dramatically change with Prime Air. 8 long years after it was first announced, Amazon Prime Air is finally launching today in parts of California and Texas. For queer businesses and shoppers looking to support those businesses, this could mean an easier and safer way to shop, especially for those individuals who may be transitioning and suffering from body dysmorphia. Being able to safely receive products without dealing directly with a delivery person, especially in more remote areas. In what other ways do you guys think this automated delivery service could help LGBTQ plus businesses and shoppers? Could your businesses or customers benefit from this service?
In one way, I think it could really help gay business is, especially in rural or smaller towns where they might face more homophobia in terms of finding suppliers. You know, let's say you own a beauty shop and you can't find a local supplier to sell to you because you're gay, or, you know, you can buy whatever you need. I mean, that's wholesale, I guess. But I'm, thinking of whatever businesses need to do business, they can buy without having to deal with whatever they're dealing with in their smaller town or,
That's a great.
I think it's interesting the difference in some of the services that are going on right now, where now I think it's Walmart has the ability to actually go in your house and put your groceries away. And now, so we have like both ends of the spectrum being represented, where do you want someone to come in your house and put your groceries away or put the things in your garage? They actually have a code, and I think Amazon has this also, where they can actually, you can grant them access to come into your home. And then we have this side of it. So, I think there are, positives and negatives for all of these things. I think for privacy and security purposes, a lot of people may benefit from this kind of non-human contact delivery.
Yeah,
Agreed.
And it seems like that's where we're going with things. Everything is now digital, and you really don't have to have that person-to-person contact. I don't know if I like that, because where's that human aspect? I feel like we should not ever lose that.
Sure.
So I'm a little nervous, but I'm paying attention to see how things happen.
Yeah, to Jeff's point, I had someone from Walmart deliver a banana to me.
One banana?
Just the one.
Oh.
Just one. What was his name?
was it $10? No.
$14.95.
Not bad in this.
So my agency partnered with a business called Outplay during COVID, and we provided masks to a few medical facilities because they pivoted their business to make masks because they got shut down as a non-essential business because they were pre-COVID. It was a a bathing suit company for gender non-conforming people. And so that's kind of what comes to my mind, right? As we think about the people who would maybe be uncomfortable meeting the Amazon delivery person at the door, if there's some kind of external packaging that can be seen, right? So I see that as a huge win. And let's just make people as comfortable as they possibly can be, right? When they're going through these things. So yeah, absolutely. I'm for it. All right.
Well, next, we're proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
Kiara Johnson, the Executive Director of the National LGBTQ Task Force. And as one of the most important civil rights organizations, I know the value of the support that comes from all corners of our community. That's why Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight for our special edition of Queer News Tonight with the Business Takeover. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Lexi Goza, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Tarek Turjman, Jeff Oliverio, John Hayden, and Nic London. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you good night.
Good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally